My name is Rich Heller, and this is Surprise Medical Billing and the No Surprises Act. More surprises than you think, Part 1. So, in his State of the Union address this year, President Biden proudly proclaimed that we're already stopping 1 million surprise bills per month. This received applause from both sides of the aisle, deservedly so. Surprise medical billing is not a partisan issue. In fact, the law that President Biden was talking about, the No Surprises Act, was passed with bipartisan support. It's one of the few things that Speaker Pelosi and Donald Trump both agreed on, and that both parties agreed needed to be addressed: the problem of surprise medical bills. But much went left unsaid in the State of the Union address. For example, President Biden did not mention that his own administration's report showed that the program itself was overwhelmed and suffering operational difficulties. Furthermore, the president did not mention that the day before the State of the Union address, his administration lost their second straight lawsuit on their implementation of the law. But let's first take a step back. What is surprise medical billing? Well, for starters, it's kind of a misnomer. It's much more accurately termed a surprise insurance gap, because that's what it is. It's a surprise gap in people's health insurance. So here's how I explain that surprise insurance gap using the language of my children: emojis. So this is Emmy the emoji. Now, Emmy has private health insurance. She gets it through work. So when Emmy got hurt, she knew just what to do. Emmy went to the nearest in-network hospital. They took good care of Emmy. They made Emmy feel all better. But then, a few weeks later, Emmy got a big bill in the mail. It turns out that one of the doctors at that in-network hospital was not in network with Emmy's health plan. And because they were out of network with Emmy's health plan, Emmy owes a lot more money out of pocket than she was expecting. That's the surprise insurance gap, or surprise medical billing. Somebody who has private health insurance gets unexpected out of network care. And because it's out of network, they may end up owing more money out of pocket than they were expecting. Now, there was consensus within the House of Medicine that this was a problem, and it needed to be addressed. But what not everybody recognized was that laws to address surprise medical billing can do two things. The first one's intuitive. It addresses surprise medical billing. That's not controversial. That's patient protective. But what it can also do is that laws to address surprise medical billing, if crafted in a certain way, they can disrupt those good faith network contract negotiations that take place between insurance companies and medical providers, such as physician practices or hospitals. In many ways, the issue of surprise medical billing legislation can be seen as a Trojan horse of sorts, meaning that you took the very real issue of surprise medical billing, but it was used to push through legislation to disrupt the good faith contract negotiations that take place between medical organizations and insurance companies for the benefit of the insurance companies. But we're left with this: we do need to address surprise medical billing. And what are a few basic principles that we should consider as we address them? Well, insurance products need to have network adequacy standards. There needs to be a reasonable number of different types of physicians in each health plan. And it needs to be obvious, transparent to patients which physicians, which hospitals are in network. And that if a patient gets unexpected out-of-network care, they should be held financially harmless, meaning that they simply pay their normal in-network cost-sharing amount, and that the insurance companies then reimburse the providers for the balance. Now, there were two approaches to determine what that balance should be, or how we should determine what that value is. And the first one was benchmarking. The idea of benchmarking was really, well, how are we going to value that service? What about Medicare? Well, people quickly moved off using Medicare as a benchmark. Medicare is not a market-based rate, nor was it intended to be a market-based rate. But then somebody, I'm going to assume from an insurance company, I actually don't know, had an idea. They go, I'll tell you what. Why don't we, the insurance company, pay you the median of our in-network rates? Go on. What they said was, look, we, the insurance company, for out-of-network care, we're not going to pay you the best rate that we have contracted for that item or service, but we're not going to pay you the worst either. We'll give you the median, the 50th percentile rate for that service. Well, that seems reasonable, said lots of people. I even had physicians tell me, look, Rich, I know that you're interested in this surprise insurance gap, but I got to tell you, our practice, We're like 98% in network. We're a good practice. We invest in quality improvement. We've got good contracts. So if I get a median rate for 2% of my claims, buddy, I got bigger fish to fry. And what I had to tell that person was, you're missing the point. They're not going after the 2%. They're going after the 98%. Let me walk you through this figure. In this slide, on the left-hand side, you see a tall blue box. That represents the spectrum of rates that an insurance company would have contracted for a given item or service. Let's put some numbers on it. Let's say the median rate they have for that item or service is $50, and then the top rate, the 100th percentile rate they have, is $100. Now imagine that you're in a good medical practice, you invest in quality improvement, you do all the right stuff. You've negotiated a rate of $60. What would happen to that $60 rate if Congress passed a law benchmarking off the median in network? Well, you would get a letter from the insurance company, and it would read something like this: Dear valued provider, and now I'm going to paraphrase, you got two choices, and we, the insurance company, we are cool either way. You just let us know which way you want to go. Option one, you go out of network. Now, if you go out of network, you're not going to get paid quickly because, frankly, we have your money invested that we would pay you. We're getting interest on it. And gosh darn it, we like getting that money. We like getting that interest. So we're going to make you an out-of-network provider. You're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops to get that money as an out-of-network provider. But at the end of the day, you're going to get your money, but it won't be $60. Or you can stay in network. Now, if you stay in network, frankly, it's going to be easier for you to get paid. It's going to be faster, more reliable. It's going to be less expensive for you to get your money. But you're not going to get to keep your $60 rate. You're probably not even going to get $50. There's usually some discount to being in network. Let's say it's $47. Now, I made up the numbers. They're completely made up, but the intuition is there. Benchmarking at the median in-network rate is a powerful way to take the top 50th percentile of rates, cut them off, throw them away, and recalibrate everything downward. That's why in the green box in the middle, which is after a benchmarking law was passed, the top rate you can get, the 100th percentile rate, would be what used to be the 50th percentile. And if you want to be in network, it's probably going to be a little bit below that. Benchmarking at the median of the in-network rates is a powerful way to disrupt those good faith network contract negotiations and dial down, ratchet down reimbursement to medical practices for the benefit of the insurance companies. The other approach that got traction was arbitration. With arbitration, the idea is to end surprise medical billing without disrupting those good faith contract negotiations that take place. What arbitration essentially says is, first, patients are protected. They're removed from reimbursement disputes between the insurance companies and the medical providers. And then it essentially says, look, you insurance companies and you medical providers, you go figure it out amongst yourselves. And if you can't, well, I'll assign a neutral third-party arbiter and then they'll decide it for you. So Congress did go back and forth on what they wanted to do. There were some in Congress that wanted to benchmark at the median in-network rate, that wanted to disrupt those good faith negotiations. It was almost Ross and Rachel. Will they or won't they? I don't know. But at the end of the day, Congress passed a law called the No Surprises Act. It was passed in December of 2020 with a start date of January 1, 2022. First, and most importantly, the law protects patients. It removes them from reimbursement disputes between insurance companies and the medical providers for those applicable circumstances where patients get unexpected out-of-network care. And as for the reimbursement method, it went with arbitration, which the law calls independent dispute resolution, or IDR. And the law itself actually spelled out the criteria that the arbiters should be considering in making their determinations. And I give Congress credit. They were very thoughtful in the criteria. You can tell they were striving for balance, trying to balance the concerns of the insurance companies with the concerns of the medical practices and hospitals. And I can prove it to you. The law actually specifies there are two things the arbiter is not allowed to consider. It goes, arbiters, you can't consider the billed charges, like from a physician practice or a hospital facility. It goes, those are too high. You can't consider those. But insurance companies, you can't submit public payer rates like Medicare or Medicaid on the other side. It was very tit for tat. In fact, there's only one thing on the list which isn't really balanced. That's this weird expression, qualifying payment amount. It goes by the acronym QPA. It's a mouthful. What is a QPA? That's the median and network rate. That's the great compromise that was made. There were some in Congress that wanted to benchmark at the median network rate. Congress went with an arbitration model, but the compromise that was made was we're going to do arbitration, but one of the criteria that we will include for the arbiters to consider in making their decision is going to be the median and network rate. Was the House of Medicine thrilled this was included? No, because it benefits the insurers and isn't counterbalanced with other criteria. But in a compromise, you don't get everything you want. So this is the compromise that was made. The question then would be, would the administration implement the law through rulemaking in the balanced approach that Congress intended? We'll get into that in part 2. Thank you very much.